Hi guys, and welcome back to Scale Motor. Today, something which I haven't really mentioned in a while, but I wanted to crack on with it. We're not cracking on, we're starting with our Audi R8. This is the first part. Quite a daunting build to start with because I was doing my first full kind of like decal set, which was rather scary. It's like a full jacket, SK decals aftermarket, and you know what? It tested me. You'll see. But yeah, I haven't gone any further with the build at the moment because I need to 2K it. But I've got other things I need to 2K, so I'm thinking of just waiting, just to get it all done. But I thought I could get a part out now because I have enough footage before 2K. Because there's a lot of PE work that I done, a lot of decaling and a lot of carbon fibre. There's some modifying bits and bobs which I've done. So I thought I'd get a video out because Philip Hartford, yes, Philip, you, yes, he has been on my back about this, and it hasn't been annoying. Poor Philip, I think he messaged me the other day after Paul mentioned on the live show. He hasn't been getting on my nerves. But when somebody like keeps asking you for something, it makes you not want to do it. And that's just how my mind works. It's really, I'm sorry, Philip. But yeah, don't worry, Philip. You haven't annoyed me or anything. But yeah, I was editing a different video, and I thought, well, I'll get all the clips I've got of the Audi in a timeline, so I can edit them. And I was looking through them. The more I wanted to make the video and actually carry on with the build, which is really annoying because I've got other builds I want to do, and I've got other builds on the go. But yeah, so I think my next step now after this Volvo and trailer combo is carrying on with that Audi. I can hear Philip rejoicing already. Oh, crikey. But yeah, B-Max, is it B-Max? I can't remember. I don't know what the kit is now. Uh-oh. Oh, Nunu, naughty Nunu. So it's a Nunu kit. Wasn't that inspiring? I've got a hobby design aftermarket set, and I've got the decal scheme, which you both will play a part in this video now, so you're going to see those. Yeah, so the first bit had quite a few trials and tribulations, which we managed to overcome just about. But yeah, I'm not going to blabber on. I'm just going to jump straight in. Just before we jump in, quick thank you to everyone. I know I thank you in most videos these days, but I am absolutely overwhelmed with the support and the views and the subscribes and the likes and the comments and everything you guys give me, not just on YouTube, but across my Instagram and my Facebook page. So thank you so much. Yeah, don't forget, give the video a like. Drop a like. We're trying to reach 50 likes on each video at least. Drop a comment. Any interaction really helps. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you get notifications when I release videos, because they're not structured. They're quite sporadic because I've got stuff going on, work, uni. There's a lot going on. So yeah, don't forget to hit the bell. But yeah, let's jump in.
Okay, so first up what we did is we took a look around the body just to see any imperfections, anything which might need addressing. I noticed at the top of the doors there was a little gap where the panel line stopped. I know this is going to be hidden by the windows, but it annoyed me, so I deepened the panel lines for most of the car and also just filled in this little gap. I say filled in, I've done the opposite of filling in. I cut away this little gap just so the panel line went right up to the window. Thankfully, I'm using a bluntish blade for this, because otherwise that would have been straight through my thumb. But we were good. I think a blunter blade helps to stop with the slip-in when you're doing the panel lines, just because a nice sharp blade will slide through anything. After that, we moved on to mold lines and just mold lines. So they were pretty pronounced mold lines over the top of this wing on the front, and the same on the back. Now I know there's a bit of a lip on the actual wing on the car, but it just looked a bit too much. So yeah, we sanded that down so it was nice, and it didn't look like Batman fins, like the Batmobile. Okay, then what we moved on to doing is the PE bonnet latches, and there was the same for the engine cover latches on the back. So the first thing we decided to do is we got our blade, poked a little pilot hole, and then we got our pin vise and drilled 2 holes. Then we used our blade to join the holes up, so it was one big slit. But we didn't cut away all of the moulded in detail, because we wanted to leave a little lip around the edge. As you can see, I've already done one. We wanted to leave a little lip around the edge of the hole, so we could then cut away some material. Not all of it. The reason we cut away some material, you can see I'm scraping it away here, is just we scraped away about as much as the thickness of the PE. This way we can pop the PE here, we can locate it properly, and we can get it to sit nice and flush without too much extra hassle. Be careful doing this. Again, you don't want to slip, but if you do, you can sand away your mistakes. Just gently take away that material, and then once we're done there, we'll get our PE bonnet latch, and as you can see, it fits in nicely, and it is exactly where it needs to be. We don't have to mess about measuring stuff, and this I'd rather spend that little extra time scraping away beforehand just to get it where it needs to be. And then we're just going to get our Tamiya tape it down so it stays in place. And then we're going to flip it over, and you can see we've got a nice hole in the back where we can see the PE, and we're just going to put our super glue in there. And the super glue is better with a thicker glue. We're using the Loctite Craft Pen Fella Boy, whatever it's called. Here, it's nice and thick. So yeah, this is like a filler and a glue, and it'll stick that in place and fill the hole. I'm just using a cocktail stick to poke it around the edges to make sure I've got a nice bond. I can't remember where I saw this tip, applying glue for PE through a hole. Well, I can, sorry, actually it was on a video of a gentleman building a battleship Yamato, I believe. I'll put a link in the description, amography or something, I'm not too sure, but excellent builder, great to watch, and you could pick up a little few tips from other people which are transferable. And then we're using another pair of tweezers just to hold the PE down while we peel the tape. You can leave the tape on for a little bit longer if you like, but as you can see, we've done the engine cover on the back, and then we're just using some Tamiya sponge, and then we went through UMP sanders and buffers just to get all the CA marks off and make sure we've got a nice flush fit. Okay, next up we are doing a little bit of PE. This is for some of the Aero on the back. So what we've done is we've cut the parts off the fret, then we've got a bit of white tack, we've popped that down, we've popped the main support part onto that white tack, and then we're just using our Tamiya fine pointed tweezers to locate each part. We haven't applied any glue or anything yet. We are literally at the moment just sorry, that's the dog. We are literally at the moment just popping the parts together just to see where they all fit and make sure we've got everything correct and we can line it all up. Okay, now that's all in place, I decided to make my own little CA glue applicator. So I've just got some thin wire, which I got from a Top Studio detail set, and what we done is we just taped it to the end of a cocktail stick, and we've got a very small CA glue applicator. I'm using Deluxe Materials. Super glue here is quite thin, but what we're going to do is we're just going to apply this onto each side of the photo etch, and that little that liquid will set, and that's what's gluing our parts together. Okay, then I was just doing a little test, and yeah, after the little test, this was just to see what to cut off. Now this is the point of no return, the scary part. Off it goes. Daddy. That was the scariest part so far. Yeah, it wasn't the funnest, but it was for a good cause. So once we got that off, we just test fitted this and made sure that everything looked pretty good, and yeah, we were good. We then repeated the process again, which probably took over an hour on the other side of this. Then we moved on to the bonnet. There was some PE for the bonnet. This moulded in bit needed to be removed because it is moulded too thick, which is understandable because they moulded too thin and it's not going to work. So we snipped that off with our side cutters, and then we came in with our knife just to try and clean it flush, and very shortly afterwards we used various sanding methods. This is a Tamiya sanding sponge, and then we used the UMP sanders to finish up and get a nice finish, a nice smooth surface. Just getting the last of it away from the inside there. Again, we use the UMP sanders on this part too. Be very careful when you're cleaning, if you're cleaning it with a knife, because obviously it's easy to slip. There's two pieces of PE which go on here, which you will see very shortly. There's a bit on the front and a bit which flops in. This is the bit on the front. Now I could have done the same as I did for the bonnet latches and sanded away, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick it on, just stick it on top. So, because I thought it'd be slightly raised anyway. So we held it in place, and we used our homemade glue applicator to pop a bit of glue under one side, and then once that was semi-set, we done the same on the opposite side, and then this made it a lot easier for us to line up rather than gluing the part, holding it above, lining it up, dropping it in place and hoping for the best. Then that little fin we cut off previously, we are now reproducing or replicating with some photo etch. This was a little bit fiddly. I don't know why it was so fiddly. It seemed like it was a little bit too long. But yeah, in the end we got it in. It press fit in quite nice. There's no glue on it there, so you know it fit well. Once we were able to push it all the way home, and then again we're using our homemade glue applicator, and we got glue on our finger. Make sure you rub that off before you go touching your model. Then we're just using our glue applicator again to add a bead of glue along the underneath so we can get that to sit in and stay put. And there we go, there we have it. Subtle detail, but I think the subtle details are the details that make it. Next, more subtle details. Probably unnecessary, but I had it, so I wanted to use it. So These are PE fins for the diffuser, and before we done the scary part of cutting it off here, we just put the fins up to the fins which are there, and we used our blade to mark where along the fin the holes to mount the fin were. And then after cutting our PE off and doing a little bit of our plastic off and doing a little bit of cleanup, we went in and drilled the holes. We could drill the holes quite nicely using our previous reference marks, and then we can see that the holes line up nicely. However, the profile of the PE is slightly off. You can see if it's in one side, it leaves a gap on the other. So to solve this, we used our Tamiya craft saw and ever so gently tried to saw a straight line where the original diffuser fin was, where the new PE is going to sit. And what this will do is we focused on the middle because that seemed to be the part that was interfering. And this should eliminate any interference along the middle. Don't just go ham and go crazy and do a nice deep groove first. Just cut, test fit, cut, test fit, cut, test fit, which was essentially the process we followed here. But I just cut a lot of that out of the video because I didn't think you wanted to see that over and over again. And in the end, we got it to sit nice with no gaps. And then, because we did make a little bit of a mess, we went to the Tamiya putty and we're just going to fill our gap completely. Seems counterintuitive, I know, but we want to get it on nice and quick so we can fill our gaps here while our and then we can come in while our putty is still wet and push our PE into place. What this will do is it'll fill the gaps and it'll help keep it in place. And then we're just going to add a big dollop of glue to the mounting points on the back. So we've got a little bit of extra hold for the PE. And this fun, very long process was repeated on the other side. So before the filler dries, we're just trying to wipe away as much excess as we can to limit our need for sanding later on. I've profiled the end of this micro brush. I've snipped it at a kind of 90-degree point on the end, so it'll help us get in there and remove any of this excess. As you can see, I've done it on the other side too, and it's a little bit drier now, which is why I'm being a little bit more forceful just to get rid of a bit. But what you want to do is you want to kind of leave a bead of it between your plastic base and your PE, as if it's a weld, really, just so you know you're going to fill your gaps. So next up, we are moving on to more PE, and this is these are the supports for the spoiler. There were two of these, obviously, comprising of 2 pieces each. Make sure you look at the instructions because one side goes somewhere. So we just glued them together by eye, and then we used our UMP sander just to sand away any CA marks which we had left over. Lovely jubbly. And then when I was test fitting them, I realised there is a huge gap here where the kit parts fit, which isn't ideal because that will be seen around the base, which is not too much of a problem, but if you go into all this effort, why not go to a bit more? So we done the same as we did with the fins on the bottom, and we completely filled this hole. I understand there's going to be a little bit of rescribing needed, but that shouldn't be hard at all. So then we get a pointed Tamiya cotton brush just to get a nice flat surface. And again, we're trying to do this while the putty is still wet. And we're going to push in our supports. So we have our hole and a nice kind of groove for them to fit into to help with locating later on down the road. and we held that in place and then followed the same method as before, except we did not glue our supports back in place because they need to be painted a different colour and we still need to decal. So while the Tamiya putty was still slightly malleable, what we done is we just pulled the supports out. And you can see it's not the prettiest, but we've got somewhere to help us pop this back in later after paint and decals. Next up, another scary part. Yet again, this is part of the Aero for those gaps you see at the front of the door. At this point, I was in a state of, you know what, just get in, get it done. So I chopped them off. And then we went through various grades of UMP sanders just to clean it up enough so we've got a nice flat surface to work with. Yeah, at this point, a nice flat area was the best option to try and help me get the parts in correctly. So we've got a couple of PE fins, and what I'm doing here is I'm putting them on some Tamiya masking tape, and I'm putting the edge at the edge, and then I'm cutting where the pin for mounting the PE is. Now, I'm using this along with the faint lines we can see from the bits we cut off to get a nice semi-accurate reading measurement of where to drill holes, and then we just use the corner of that piece of masking tape to get the holes drilled, and we've done this for each piece on each side. I think there were 5 on each side, so 10 in total. Yeah, again, this took a while. A lot of this took a while. And then once we had our holes drilled and we knew where we were putting our PE, we come back in with the UMP sanders just to finish our surface. So we went through the grits and then ended up with a UMP buffer just so we had a nice, smooth, shiny plastic finish, as if brand new. And then we used our thicker CA glue to mount our parts. So first we test fit. And we grip. This is much easier with tweezers, as you can tell. Quite fiddly. And what's important is to try and get them all the same angle. Now, I could have curved them like the original pieces, and I did try that, but the PE was rather thick, and it was a bit of a nightmare to curve because it wasn't just a kind of fold in the middle, it was a fold along a curve. It was kind of at an angle, so yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare to do, so I opted to just put them in straight. And the finish doesn't look bad. I'm not dissatisfied at all. But yeah, we just dip in the mounting pin in the CA glue we have there, and then popping it straight in the hole. And there we go. There were 4, so 8 in total. Very good maths. Never guess I'm an engineering student. And then we try to test fit, and you can see we moved one a little bit because the glue hadn't really set, but we got to put that back. Now our filler has completely set. It's time to do our final cleanup of the area. So again, UMP sanders just coming in, and I'm doing it nice and flat because I'm trying to just get the filler that we have on the plastic, and then we'll move to the PE afterwards. But again, went through various grades of UMP sanders and ended up with the buffer, and we done the same on the top of our boot lid. So we're just sanding away the excess. Just want to get this nice and flat, and then once we do, we can come in with our hobby blade and we can rescribe those lines. I'm using the back just because it's a little bit blunted at first, and this shouldn't be too hard, especially if your filler hasn't set completely yet. It'll make it a little bit easier. But yeah, we're just going to rescribe those lines. The filler I left overnight to fully harden, But yeah, once we've rescribed those lines, we can test fit our spoiler mounts, arms, holders, brackets, spoiler things, and yeah, we're good to go. So these little holes in the front, you're provided with clear parts, and I think it's like an intake or something, or a light on the kit scheme, but this scheme doesn't use them. They're blanked off, so we are gluing them in now to make sure they go in the right side. There's a bit of a weird gap, but once they're in there, because this is going to be covered with paint and decals, we can use quite a generous amount of Tamiya extra thin to get that to stick in place. Generally you wouldn't use this on clear parts, but because I'm not worried about fogging or melting or anything, because it's going to be painted over and decaled over, we just went in with the extra thin. Okay, next, a bit more PE. A lot of PE in this so far. This is fairly annoying. There's 2 pieces of PE with 3 rivets that go through. It's not that bad once you line up the 2 pieces of PE, so there's no glue on the first 2 pieces. I am just using the rivets to hold it together. So what I've done is I've popped 1 rivet in, and then there were 3 rivets. Pop the second one in, and this should pull everything true, so you'll be able to put the third in without any issues. I'm just going to push it down until they are fully home, and then we used our CA glue applicator, which we made previously, to add some glue to the back side of these rivets, and then we did later on sand them down a bit. We snipped quite a bit of the back of the rivet off and sanded them, not exactly flush. We wanted to leave them a little bit proud, so they actually looked a tiny bit proud, so they actually looked a bit rivety or screwy. Yeah, that's what we've done. Helps locate the main long flat bit of the spoiler as well, if you leave them standing proud slightly. Yeah, we could have dipped these in CA glue and then popped them through the hole, but I worry a bit doing that, because knowing my luck, I'll end up putting the rivet somewhere where it shouldn't go, and yeah, we'll end up with CA glue everywhere, or a rivet stuck to something it shouldn't, or I'll go to pull it out of the CA glue and it'll stay in the CA glue, or we'll get glue on the tip of our tweezers and not notice, and then end up sticking our tweezers to something. So there we can see we have all 3 rivets seated where they need to be. Pretty fiddly, but definitely worth it. Next up was paint. Now, I didn't have any white primer. Yeah, so I didn't know what to do. I was thinking of mixing some grey with some white to make a really kind of fine primer, like a slightly white primer, and then I was thinking, you know, I'll primer in black, then paint it silver, then paint it white. But I just, after the discussion with Alan in the Hangout, I decided what we were going to do is, with some direction from Alan, discussing it, we realised that a lacquer paint is going to eat into the surface anyway. That's how lacquer paints generally stick to plastic. So I primed with LP39, which is Tamiya Racing White, because I needed a white colour underneath, just so when we painted the body white, we didn't have too much issues with coverage. So we used the Tamiya LP39. It was a bit hard to see going down, but it wasn't much of a problem. And with it being like an LP paint, you can put it on a little bit thicker. But yeah, we didn't have any issues using a lacquer paint as a primer. I wouldn't suggest doing it on every build. However, in a pinch, it'll work. So yeah, and I haven't had any issues with the paint while handling the model afterwards, so that is good. So we ended up with about 3-4 coats of the LP38 thinned with Mr. Leveling Thinner, just to give it a bit more bite. Thinned about 60-40 with 60% thinner. Like I said, I don't know the exact ratio, so just do it by eye. Next up, we moved in with Mr. Surfacer 1500, I believe. Mr. Surfacer 1500 black. Again, thinned with Leveling Thinner this time, and thinned about, I think it's actually about 70% thinner in this case. But again, we slowly went over the rest of our parts, all the little PE bits we've done. Sorry, this is out of shot. I was still fiddling with the camera at this point. But yeah, ended up with about 3 or 4 coats. It covers really, really well as well, so painting over black, it can be a little hard, but we got there. Just use the light, angle your part so you can see the paint going down, and that'll help you make sure you get full coverage. And then we moved on to paint, and this was painted in Tamiya LP2, I believe it is, which is just Tamiya white, and again thinned. I think it's thinned about 50% because it was a bit runny. I don't know if I'd used it before or whatever, but yeah, about 50%. Like I said, play it by eye. I don't know my exact ratios. I don't really measure often. I just pop it in and wait till it's the consistency and it sprays nice, and away we go. But again, can be a little fiddly or a little annoying painting white over white, but use the light to your advantage. Build up the coats slowly, and then with the LP paints, what I like to do is do a nice kind of not super wet coat for the last coat, but definitely a wettish coat, just so we've got a nice kind of glossy look, and then you can leave that then to set. I generally, after I've painted, before I decal, I will leave at least 12 hours, so overnight at the very minimum. Now there's a lot of different angled surfaces and dips and creases and stuff on this bodywork, so just make sure you cover all those, get the inside of the arches and everything, because you don't want to see the difference between that white paint and that slightly different colour primer underneath. Not too much of an issue in this case because we're doing a full jacket decal set. But yeah, generally that's what you want. You want to make sure you cover everything. So there we go. Once we got our 4 coats down of the white, just to get a nice finish, moved on to the most daunting part of this so far, and that is decals. Just look at these decals. There are many. I think there were 3 or 4 sheets in total we were using and pulling from. Yeah, was quite daunting at first, but I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna jump in. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do what I can. This was the most in-depth decal scheme I'd done. So first thing I was doing, I was changing the blade. I was also told off by Simon for changing the blade like that. He uses a pair of pliers or something because he stabbed himself too many times. I'm sure I'll end up doing so. Anyway, this was the first decal we went for. I went straight in with the roof decal. And at this point in my modelling career, shall we say, this was the biggest decal I had ever attempted. And so we got the microsol down first. We got a healthy coating of the microsol on the roof. Now this was before I had the coffee warmer to warm my decal water, and before I had any sort of heat gun. So for these decals I was relying solely on the UMP solutions, which I must say worked marvellously. So I've got hot water from the tap in my multi-use ramekin, and we dipped our decal in there and left it soak for a bit, just until we could move it slightly on the backing paper, and then we offered it up to the actual body. Now, generally, I try to get it as bang on as I can right here. The first time it comes off the backing, especially with the bigger ones because they seem harder to move. But it was a little bit out, and I could see at this point it was going to require quite a bit of work. So I went to peel it up, and it ripped. These decals were very surprisingly rather brittle. What I think it was is my multi-use ramekin, which you've seen I use for 2K, wasn't cleaned adequately. So maybe there was a bit of thinner left in there, and that reacted with the decals, because every time I tried to pull a decal up or move a decal, I'd get a rip. And my surface, my paint finish was glossy smooth. So, user error. I'm not blaming these decals, because after this, the rest of the decaling seemed to go really, really well. But at this point, I had ripped and creased this decal so many times, panic began to set in. I was worried. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was in a hangout and spoke to Paul and the crew. I think we were live, actually. And anyway, I thought, I'm going to go in with the decal solutions, and I'm going to try. So here I'm using the UMP Strong, I believe. And still panicking, trying my best. You can see my camera shifted, I don't know what I'm doing. So at this point I turned the camera off, because I didn't know what to do. In this time, I was speaking to the guys in the hangout, and he said, try and refloat the decal, get it as wet as you can, get the biggest pot of water that you can get, because as you can see, this wasn't going well. I didn't have heat at hand. So yeah, it was scary, considering that was my first decal and there were so many to do. Yeah, it was a little scary. So in a rage, I stopped recording. We got that decal bath up the back there, which is just another thing I stole from my girlfriend, and we managed to refloat the decal and we got it down a little bit better. While the camera was off, you can see I'd done a bit more. But there were a lot of decals to do. So I'm going to zoom through the vast majority of these decals, just so you can get a sense of how many there were. I had hours and hours of this footage of me just decaling. Once we, after the original issues, you can see I decided to use that water in the back rather than my multi-use super duper ramekin, and it seemed to be a lot better. So I do think there was some contamination in my water. Unfortunately, it's my own fault. But we also stopped using the microsol after this point, because it did smell a little strong, and I don't know if it had passed its shelf life. Maybe. So we were using straight water instead of the microsol to float the decal and move it into place. And then I decided I was going to be a little bit more gentle, but as you can see, I can actually put a little bit more effort into these decals now. Now I'm not using the microsol and using different water. This water was cold as well the whole time. This water was cold. Maybe it was the warm water which gave me the issue. I don't know. I don't know at this point. I'm just happy we were able to get the whole thing decaled. We switched over to using brushes too, rather than cotton buds, because I found they were being a bit crap. So yeah, we are using just synthetic paint brushes to set our decal. Right now we have no decal solution on this whatsoever. This is literally just the water and the brush helping put it in place. And yeah, you can see I'm able to pull them a lot more than I was previously, so definitely think my original water was the issue. Making sure I've got wet fingers when I'm pressing and poking the decal, because I don't want it to stick to my fingers and pull off. But yeah, a lot more user friendly after changing my water. We were also using a brush to apply decal solution. At this point I was just jumping straight in with the UMP Extra Strong, because I knew these decals could handle it at this point. Yeah, night and day difference between these decals and our very first one I put on. So I think it was definitely user error and nothing bad against SK at all, because it's a beautiful decal scheme and I love the way it pieces together. Even though they're bigger decals, I really enjoyed it after that first initial heartbreak. But yeah, we done one side unfortunately off camera because I don't know, I was enraged, but I thought I'd record the rest. So yeah, quite pleased with the decals overall. I just wish that first one didn't mess up. What I did end up doing is some parts which ended up bunched up, I cut them out, and because the body underneath is white and it matches very, very closely, if not exactly, to the decal, the white in the decals, it just looked like part of the camo pattern, thankfully. So I didn't have to touch anything up, I just had to cut bits off. So the back here and these light areas, pay special attention and be very careful, because the decals do fold around the edges of the panels. And you need to make sure they do, because otherwise it'll just look like you've got a white border around everything, which, yeah, is not... it just kind of frames it weirdly, and it kind of loses the effect of the camo. But yeah, we're following the same process, trying to get it where we need to be. Look at this, look, see, completely different. If that first decal had done that, it would have been a scrumply little mess on my bench, and I would have been doing a different scheme. But when we persevered, so yeah, just goes to show, if something happens that you are not expecting, try something else. You know, check your workflow, see exactly what you're doing, break it down, what could have caused the issue, what you think caused the issue, and then try something else. And that's what we did in this case. I thought it might have been the water combined with the microsol, so we stopped using the original water and we stopped using the microset, sorry, which is the blue one, and things seem to go a lot better. Again, this was done with no heat and cold water. I think if I'd done it now with all the tools that I have now, it would be 10 times easier. And some of the fiddliest decals on this were these decals over the front here, because we had the one which is this one, which just goes on the side. That wasn't too much of an issue. And then we had a couple of different ones on the front bumper and the front right of the car. Matching them up was a little bit fiddly, but we managed to get there. The decals over the vents on the top were actually surprisingly quite easy. I just popped them on using the water technique, and then I used the extra strong decal solution, popped it over the top, let it set, then used the brush to poke it down slightly, then a bit more decal solution, let it do its stuff, and it was just a case of doing that over and over again. Yeah, so once, you know, once we got a nice kind of, you'll be able to see the fins of that vent through the actual decal once you get down there, and after you've done a lot of decal solution. And then what you can do is very, very carefully come in with a very sharp blade and just cut them, and then continue with the decal solutions and the brushes just to get them to conform around each fin. Yeah, I didn't actually count how many decals there were in total, but there were many decals. Okay, next up there were quite a lot of decals to go on top of our previously placed decals. I'm not really going to cover this much in depth because it was pretty straightforward. They were just kind of standard decal, and the only thing I would be The only thing I would normally say is try not to use the micro sol or micro set, whichever one it is, the blue one, just because it might cause issues with the decal underneath. But in this case we were using water, so that didn't really matter too much. And I found these decals, the bigger ones, once they were down and they'd gone through like 1 or 2 rounds of the decal solution, it was nigh on impossible to move them. So you could you could safely go over the top and do other decals. Just make sure you can see I'm holding the car over the back. Those decals are all set. This was done over the course of a couple of days. It wasn't all done in one sitting. I probably would have ended up pulling my hair out, but yeah, it took a couple of days, but we got there. So there were these pods, vent things for the side, which also needed to be decaled. So the great thing was we didn't have to paint them in gloss black. We could have left them in primer and just use this rather than just having a grey decal to go down the edge. These fit quite nice, and again they had to have decals on over the top, but we followed the exact same process as we have been, using the water, cold water, I know. Slide them on in place, use a brush to remove like any bubbles or excess from underneath, and then hit them with our UMP Extra Strong decal solution. I'm literally contradicting myself there. I was telling you I was using a brush, but I wasn't. I was using my fingers. At this point I was quite confident with the decals, and because I'd done 3,695 million previously of this decal sheet, I was quite happy to use my fingers. And there we are, all fully decaled up. So, marvellous. Next step. Decals. Oh, never mind. So, yeah, carbon fibre decals. Next. A friend of mine sent me the carbon fibre decal sheet for this. Mr. Adam Smith, a very, very nice gentleman, sent me the decal sheet, Studio 27 I believe it was. So what I done is I scanned them into my PC, and then I used a Cricut to cut them on Scale Motorsport carbon fibre, which to me is the best on the market. I've used quite a few now, and this Scale Motorsport is just so much more forgiving and reacts so well to decal solutions, and it really conforms well. Quite simple on these pieces to do. Again, we used water to put it down first, then we used the brush to get any of the excess water out and just to get it in those little creases. And then we used our UMP Extra Strong, and UMP Extra Strong and this stuff, Scale Motorsport carbon fibre, is a match made in heaven. Just works so well. We had to leave this set, and then there was another piece on the other side to do as well. I'm speeding this up because you've seen me decal for hours now, and I've got this covered more in depth in some of my other builds. But let me know if you want me to do a video solely on how I do carbon fibre decaling and stuff, and I shall oblige. So we also got the front splitter done as well. A little bit more fiddly, a bit of a complex shape on it, but like I said, the Scale Motorsport carbon fibre and the UMP Extra Strong decal solution, match made in heaven. You could get round the biggest creases and curves and complex shapes with that match. Yeah, they're my go-to for carbon fibering. Okay, another decal over a decal. Not much I can say apart from what I have previously said. This goes down nice. It'd be nice if they supplied carbon fibre decals for this in the kit. I know they do an aftermarket kit with some like photo etch and stuff, which does actually come with carbon fibre decals. But I mean, my my kind of, I don't know, I kind of think if that's supposed to be carbon fibre, supply carbon fibre, it might be a bit more costly for them, but they're making it anyway to do the detail sets, to sell the PE as aftermarket, like, you know. Anyway, now we've cleaned out our ramekin thoroughly, so we've gone back to using our ramekin, and now I've got a coffee warmer to keep the decal water warm. And we're doing more of this. What's it called? Carbon fibre decaling. We're doing the diffuser. The carbon fibre I've got is slightly out of size. Nothing to do with Studio 27. That's my fault. When I scanned it in, I didn't size it properly, so I had to scan it in, print it out, and guess the size. So like 50%, nope, didn't work. 25%, nope, didn't work. So yeah, I had to print it out a couple of times till I got it the exact size, and then I could send it over to my Cricut and get it cut. But I didn't get it the exact size, which is why it's slightly bigger, and you can see it's overlapping a bit. But again, UMP extra strong super decal solution. It is a super decal solution. The UMP extra strong decal solution and Scale Motorsport carbon fibre just made that a doddle. Okay, and yeah, we're pretty much all decaled up now. Yeah. As you can see by the mountain of backing paper behind me, it took a while. There were a lot of decals, and sorry, a big chunk of this video is decaling, and me rambling. Anyway, next up, we super glued our parts on. These are just vent covers, I believe, or intake covers, or I think it's for cooling the rear brakes, maybe, or engine cooling, maybe. That would make more sense. And there's also two little black plates like this, which go on the back left corner and the back right corner of the windows, respectively. Not much of a locating point for these. Yeah, they slide about a bit. So just be very careful when you're putting them on. I wasn't overly impressed with this kit so far, and looking at the detail in the interior and stuff and the engine, it is kind of lacking, but we're going to do what we can with what we got. Any opportunity I see to add any extra detail where I can, I will. I don't know if I'm going to bother like 3D printing parts for this. I mean, the wheels look good. We're just going to do what we can with paint and maybe some bare metal foil rivets and a little bit of wiring. We'll see as we go along. So now we're using the Tamiya panel line accent color black. One thing I didn't catch on camera, rather annoyingly, is I did where all the panel lines are. I did run through there with a very, very sharp blade and apply a little bit more decal solution and push them flush so we could get our wash in. Some places we didn't need to cut open and they would hold the wash anyway, just because the decal conformed so well. Places like here and that square on the front. But the vast majority, like the door and the little hatch on the roof, I'm not entirely sure what that is. Maybe it's a super escape hatch or something, but yeah, they were cut just because they're actual, panel gaps in real life. So I wanted to cut them just to make sure I could get as much wash in as possible. So we applied this all around the car and then we let it set, and then later on we came back in with a cotton bud with a little bit of odorless mineral spirits just to wipe up any excess. And then we can see the finished decaled piece. yeah, the decals went really well, I think, after that first initial hiccup, which I think I managed to save quite well. It was a nice side shot. Nice shot from the front. Like I said, some of the white was actually decal and some is paint. It's quite intriguing to see the way they done it. Like I said, this is my first all-over decal scheme. There you go, you see I managed to salvage the roof somewhat. And we got that Audi Hong Kong logo across the front. Nice. That's just a picture of all the bits and bobs I'm using. And there you can see the bonnet latches. Nice and flush. And the same with the engine cover latches.
So there we go. First part out. First part done. The next part's going to start with the 2K of the body, and then we'll be cracking on with the interior. I think I'll have to double check through the instructions. It's been a while since I looked at it. But yeah, I think we're going to be doing that after this Volvo and trailer combo is done. Definitely, I really fancy sinking my teeth into it. But yeah, we're going to leave it there. We're not going to 2K in this video because it's already a long video. And I haven't 2K'd yet, so I'll hopefully, I'll probably do that tomorrow. Might do that tomorrow. We'll see. But yeah, as you can see, those SK decals after my first initial issues, which I think was user error. Looking back through the videos and stuff, it has to be user error. Because of my marvelous multi-use ramekin. I think I'm going to start mixing my 2K in something else. Yeah, or at least keeping my decal water. No, that ramekin's perfect for decal water. Never mind, we'll mix 2K in something else from now on. And you'll see that in the next Audi video. Yeah, so I didn't think I'd get this far after that first decal. But yeah, so far, so good. I'm a little bit apprehensive about what's coming because it doesn't look that great of a kit, to be honest, detail-wise. But I've seen some excellent builds, some amazing-looking builds of this in a different scheme. I haven't seen this in the scheme, and I think I might have. I don't know, but I didn't know that Nunu done it in this scheme, which was annoying. But the SK decals, I was happy to use. A friend was selling this kit for relatively cheap, and he gave it to me for a nice price. So yeah, I bought it and bought the aftermarket decals. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I know it was a lot of decaling. But yeah, if you have enjoyed the video, let me know down in the comments anything you would have done different. If you want to shout at me and call me an idiot for using my marvelous multi-use ramekin, which isn't actually in my hand, then yeah, let me know. Don't forget to like as well. Drop the video a like. Still trying to reach over 50 likes on each video, just because YouTube seems to enjoy that. So we'll try that. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. But for the time being, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day and stay safe.